Welcome to our Unitarian Universalist worship service. I'm Carol Flake and a member of this congregation, having served in just about every role that you can think of during my 20 years here in Brevard. Whether you're watching this Sunday morning or catching up with us during the week, thank you for joining us for this sacred time. We're delighted that you are with us virtually. In general, the announcements are that on Tuesdays we have a gathering out here on the fellowship green from 11:30 to 1:30. Please wear masks even if you have gotten the vaccine. Bring your chairs, your food, whatever else you want to share on Tuesdays.
We are thrilled to announce the upcoming next stage of our COVID-19 response, the return of face-to-face Sunday services in our beautiful sanctuary, and the continuation of online services you can enjoy from home. If you are traveling, if you feel ill, or you just had a big night on Saturday night, you can still tune in and see the service from home. The next normal for us at UUTC will be to reopen the sanctuary with safeguards in place while continuing to offer online services. Safeguards include improved ventilation with new air exchange units. People will be asked to wear masks while inside the building. No food or drink will be served inside. Vocal music will be pre-recorded. Any live music will be instrumental. The sanctuary will have limited seating in the beginning. CRE classes will not resume until fall, so parents with children should expect to bring them into the sanctuary with you. If you want to help bring about this next normal, reopening means we once again need ushers, greeters, flower providers, and providers of hospitality such as coffee. So please volunteer. Send an email to eloise@uutc.org stating how you want to help. Assuming that case numbers in Transylvania County continue to decline over the next weeks, we expect to begin hybrid services on June 20th. Watch the UUTC newsletter, Facebook, and Realm notices for details. Thank you.
In a few minutes, we will be joined by my friend Neal Jones, who is our guest speaker this morning. Reverend Dr. Neal Jones is a psychologist at the Pisgah Institute in Asheville. Neal was born and raised in North Carolina, and he earned his BA from Wake Forest University, his Master's of Divinity from Southeasterrn Seminary, and his Psy D from Baylor University. He served as a pastor in 5 congregations in North and South Carolina, Texas, and Pennsylvania. Most recently, he's been at the Main Line Unitarian Church near Philadelphia and the UU congregation of Columbia, South Carolina. He also serves as the chair of the National Board of Trustees of Americans United for Separation of Church and State. Reverend Dr. Jones teaches and practices a spirituality of personal wholeness, relational respect, and social justice. I first met Neal through his sermons in the Columbia, South Carolina Unitarian Universalist congregation. My best friends from Columbia introduced me in a more personal way because they all mourned the loss of Neal when he left Columbia to move to the Main Line Unitarian Church near Philadelphia. Neal is now joyfully relocated back to his beloved North Carolina, and he works as a psychologist in Asheville. The title of his talk today is Replacing Me with We. Neal is going to share some opening words following the musical selection.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are. is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you, UUs of Transylvania County, for having me with you today. I look forward to the time when we can all be here together. Our opening words come from historian Howard Zinn. To be hopeful in bad times is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, and kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born.
Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land building up ancient cities, raising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come, build a land where the mantles of praises resound from spear spirits, once faint and once weak, where like oaks of righteousness stand her people. Oh, come build the land, my people we seek. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
I light our chalice today with words from Melanie Davies entitled A Spark of Hope. If there ever was a time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. Now comes the time in our service when we have the chance to share our joys and sorrows. We believe that joys are magnified, worries are reduced, and grief is eased by sharing them with our beloved community. I invite those who are watching this on Sunday morning to participate by typing any joys and concerns or joys and sorrows you would like to share into the chat box of the streaming platform you're using. I cannot see them, but I will include a candle for them at the end. I light a candle for those whose work allows us to live our lives more easily and safely. May this light bring comfort to those who serve. I light a candle of gratitude for those who continue to research and administer vaccines. Their efforts and commitments bring new hope, a gift we have been offered after this last year of fear. May this light bring honor to those who serve the new fight against COVID-19. I light a candle of gratitude for those who have committed themselves to stand on the side of justice, speaking out and taking action, and advocating for those who have been denied their rights. May this light bring courage to those who speak up. I light a candle for those prayers lifted up in the chat box by those at home. We hold them in our hearts. This light is burning here at UUTC for all these things, even though we cannot be with each other. And finally, I light a candle for any care or any hope that you are not yet ready to share. May this light, kindled by everything in our hearts, be a torch that you can carry forward, knowing that we hold you in our hearts. Let us hold these lights and prayers in our hearts as we enjoy a musical selection, following which Reverend Dr. Neal Jones will give us his sermon.
witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store. Nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit going in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the stars. Winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again.
If the insurrection at our nation's capital on January the 6th accomplished anything, it vividly reminded us of the fragility of democracy. We had been warned at the beginning by one of our founders, who also happens to be a Unitarian. In addition to being a leader of the Revolution, our first vice president, and our second president, John Adams was also a student of history. Though he helped establish our American democracy, his reading of history had taught him the precariousness of democracy. Remember, he warned his compatriots, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. It is in vain to say that democracy is less vain, less proud, less selfish, less ambitious, or less avaricious than aristocracy or monarchy. It is not true, in fact, and nowhere appears in history. These passions are the same in all persons under all forms of government, and when unchecked, produce the same effects of fraud, violence, and cruelty. Sobering words from one of our founders. In fact, based on his study of history, Adams estimated that on average, a democracy lasts only about 250 years, which means that our American version of democracy doesn't have much longer to survive. And as we survey our civic landscape, it appears that Adams' prophecy may come true. Americans are increasingly losing their faith in our government, and for good reason. It seems either unwilling or unable to address the pressing problems of our time: unprecedented income inequality, stagnant wages, the evisceration of the middle class, crumbling infrastructure, climate change, a pandemic, an epidemic of gun violence, decreasing life expectancy. Need I go on? And because I'm something of a political junkie, it's tempting to veer off into a discussion of how big money is poisoning our political system, or how gerrymandering is rigging our political system. But instead, this morning, I want us to look at the bigger picture. To put this in spiritual terms, I would put it this way. We are replacing a we culture with a me culture. We no longer believe in the great idea of society itself. Or as Margaret Thatcher put it some years ago, there's no such thing as society, only a collection of individuals. We are increasingly opposed to the idea of living together in a society in which we invest in the common good. The core of democracy is about treating each person as having equal worth, is choosing what's best for everyone, not just yourself. It's about recognizing a common humanity, a common purpose, and a common destiny. However, the public sphere is being consumed by private interest. Democracy is like a garden. It must be continually tended to and nurtured, otherwise it will die. When I was growing up in the 60s and 70s in a small town in eastern North Carolina, all of us, kids from the richest families and the poorest families, black kids and white kids, we attended the same public schools, read books at the same public library, played in the same public park, traveled the same public streets and highways, were provided the same public police and fire protection, and were educated at the same public universities. Despite our varied family incomes and backgrounds, we shared common institutions, common values, and a common culture. Yet increasingly, our world is divided between those who believe in society and those who believe and live a kind of tribalism characterized by a hostility, a violence, a rage that is tearing our social fabric apart. Your kid attends schools without books, with lead in the water and asbestos in the air? That's okay. My kids are getting a quality education. You don't have health insurance? That's okay. I do. Your minimum wage job doesn't allow you to support yourself so that you have to work 2 or 3 jobs? That's okay. I'm making a killing. That's not democracy. That's sociopathic. All of us here are well aware of the political polarization between so-called liberals and conservatives, because many of us are caught up in it. We are aware of how social media makes matters worse by creating echo chambers, feeding us beliefs that we already believe, interacting only with like-minded people, and keeping out ideas with which we don't agree and people with whom we have little in common. But the great divide in the body politic goes way beyond the cyber world. Not only do liberals and conservatives differ politically, but increasingly we are living separately. As never before, liberals and conservatives are less likely to marry or have friends or even neighbors from the other end of the political spectrum. The designation of red states and blue states is based on this reality, but our preferences are much more local than that. Liberals and conservatives systematically favor different kinds of physical environments, even when they live in regions that might appear to be politically mixed. Liberals tend to prefer walkable, ethnically diverse communities, while conservatives gravitate toward areas with large houses and more private space. Liberals and conservatives tend to decorate their homes differently. Clocks and flags for conservatives, art and maps for liberals. Conservatives tend to favor neater, more orderly workspaces, while liberals tend to work in offices that are less organized and more colorful. Liberals and conservatives tend to shop at different businesses, including grocery stores and banks. For instance, liberals are more likely to shop at Target, Trader Joe's, and Whole Foods. Conservatives at Walmart and Sam's Club. They even tend to buy different brands of similar products. Liberals are more likely to buy Rolling Stone magazine, conservatives, Southern Living. Liberals are more likely to buy a Honda, conservatives, a GMC. Liberals, a Cuisinart coffee maker, conservatives, a Keurig. Liberals buy the store brand pain reliever, conservatives, Bayer aspirin. Liberals buy Combat bug spray, conservatives, Black Flag. I'm not making any of this up. It's verified by social statistics. In ways that are more unconscious than conscious, more and more of our personal choices and characteristics express our partisan allegiances, carrying a tote bag, wearing yoga pants, shopping at Walmart, driving a pickup, are ways of signaling one's tribal membership. As a nation, we are living in separate political, social, and even physical worlds, each becoming increasingly homogeneous within our tribes and more intensely hostile toward the other tribe. So that's the bad news, which seems to be fulfilling John Adams' prophecy about the fate of democracy. But I want to share with you this morning some good news of how we might save our democracy. And it's grounded in something we, you can confidently put our faith in science, in biology to be more precise. I'm relying on the research of Nicholas Christakis, who teaches social and natural science at Yale. He's published a book entitled Blueprint, The Evolutionary Origins of a Good Society, in which he makes the case that natural selection has genetically hardwired us for kindness, love, and cooperation, because these are the traits that have promoted the survival of our species. In other words, we carry within our genetic code the blueprint, hence the title of his book, for making a good society. Now, Christakis began thinking about this over 25 years ago as a hospice doctor. Death and grief unite us like nothing else, he observes. I've held the hands of countless dying people from all sorts of backgrounds, and I don't think I've met a single person who didn't share the exact same aspirations at the end of life: to make amends for mistakes, to be close to loved ones, to tell his or her story to someone who will listen, and to die free of pain. The desire for social connection is so deep that it is here with us to the end. Now, his observation counters the typical interpretation of Darwin's survival of the fittest, which emphasizes competition over cooperation. It also counters the current polarization between conservatives and liberals, which begs the question of whether a common American identity is feasible or even desirable anymore. Can you love people in your tribe without hating everyone else? That's the question we have to wrestle with if we're going to save our democracy. According to Christakis' research, we arrive in this world with a genetic blueprint which affords us the capacity for love and friendship, allowing us to work together to achieve common goals while minimizing hostility and violence. Now, Christakis has a fascination with shipwrecks because he believes they tell us a lot about how societies come into being and how they fall from grace. During the period of European exploration up into the modern era of navigation, there have been over 8,000 shipwrecks. And in the great majority of these, everyone on board went down to a watery grave. The ones which interested Christakis, however, were those that survived, that made landfall, and set up camp, usually as the result of good leadership. An intriguing case study is provided by two shipwrecks that occurred at the same time on opposite sides of the same island in the Pacific in 1864. This case is practically a social experiment of how social orders work. One crew was led by a captain who seemed mostly interested in his own survival. Landing on a rocky beach, the crew had no shoes, a few clothes, a pencil, and some matches. Leaving one weaker man to die, they set out across the island. Along the way, they abandoned other men who were too injured or too weak to go on. One man was eaten. 3 were eventually rescued, including the captain. All the lower-ranked seamen died. Now, men on the other ship, on the other side of the island, stuck together and worked collaboratively from the beginning. Despite some disagreements, there was tremendous loyalty to the group. The captain had been sick when the ship foundered, but the men refused to abandon him and took him along with them on shore. Under his guidance, they built a cabin with nails they forged themselves. Using a Roman recipe, the captain made concrete from seashells and sand. He also crafted some chess pieces, dominoes, and a pack of cards, which they had to discard because one of the crew was a sore loser and started fights. As they were from different nations, they taught each other foreign languages and math. According to the captain's log, their impromptu school equalized them. He writes, "We were alternatively the student and the teacher. We achieved a perfect equality among us." The captain proposed that the men vote and choose a head of the family. His duty, specified the captain, was to maintain order and harmony with gentleness and firmness. The men elected the sore loser at cards. He remained in this position for the 2 years of their ordeal. He, the captain, and a third man set sail in a repaired dinghy and made it all the way to New Zealand. Then they turned right around and went back to the island to rescue the 2 men who trusted them to return. No group can survive without trust. You cannot have a congregation without trust. You cannot have a country without trust in each other, knowing that we will make mistakes and will have mutinies along the way. But you cannot make it unless you trust people you barely know. This crew, relying on mutual trust, respect, and cooperation, brought into being a good society. Now, Christakis concedes that evolution has endowed us with a parallel propensity for animosity and violence, which contribute to the collapse of the social order. But living socially, democratically, is the blueprint for organizing a successful society. And we have that genetic blueprint for kindness, altruism, and friendship within us. That's the good news. The spiritual challenge for our democracy is to cultivate and reinforce and nurture this capacity, remembering that the human species has advanced more through cooperation than competition. My grandparents, who were dirt farmers in rural eastern North Carolina, survived the Great Depression, not by living a philosophy of live and let live, but of live and help live. They helped their neighbors bring in their crops, and their neighbors helped them bring in theirs. They delivered one another's babies. When a neighbor got sick, they took turns sitting by the bedside. When there was a death, they brought food to the rest of the family. They washed the body of the deceased. They dug the grave. They sat up all night with the corpse, a silent vigil to counter the loneliness of death. I once asked my grandfather why he would sit with a dead person throughout the night, knowing that he had to work the next day. He replied, because it's the thing we did. It's the thing we did. If we live simply for me and mine, we end up living the law of the jungle, a war of all against all, and a free market of wolves leads to the slaughter of lambs. But if we take the spiritual journey from me to we can create a civilization. And what is civilization? It's a web of connections, joining people to families, friends, communities, and a country, rooted in the recognition of the whole and a companionship with others. Civilization is not natural. It doesn't happen automatically. If it happens, we make it happen. It's the thing we do. A stable and honored system of laws in which no person is above the law. Safe streets, secure pensions for workers, quality schools for children, all part of the bargain we strike together for civilization. Why do the young die in battle? For their country's sake. Why do old people plant trees they will never sit under? Why do we pay taxes for schools we will never attend? Because we are all part of a big, beautiful aspiration expressed in the preamble to the Constitution as we the people. All of us, wherever we are going together. This is it. There is no planet B. There is no alternative. We are all in this together. You, me, us. We the people. Amen. Our closing words come from poet A.N. Thomas. Do not let the world make you hard. Do not let pain make you hate. Do not let the bitterness steal your sweetness. Take pride that even though the rest of the world may disagree, you still believe it to be a beautiful place.
Keep building, gotta keep building. Keep building, gotta keep building. Keep building. We are building,
gotta keep
a new way.
Keep building, gotta keep
We are
building, gotta
building
keep
a
building.
new way.
Keep building, gotta keep
We are building a new
gotta
way,
keep building.
feeling stronger
Keep building,
every
gotta
day.
keep
We
building.
are
building, gotta
building a new way.
Keep building,
We are
building, gotta
working
keep
to be free.
keep building, gotta keep
We are
keep building, gotta
working
keep
to be free.
keep building, gotta keep
We are working
Keep
to be
building, gotta
free.
keep
Hate
building.
and greed and
Keep building, gotta
jealousy.
keep
We
building.
are
building, gotta
working
keep
to be free.
keep building,
We can
keep building,
feed
gotta
our
keep
every
building.
need.
Keep building, gotta keep
We
building.
can
Keep building,
feed
gotta
our
keep
every
Keep
need.
building, gotta keep
We
building.
can feed our every
building, gotta
need.
keep
Start
building.
with love,
Keep
that is the
building, gotta
seed.
keep
We
building.
can
Keep
feed
building, gotta
our
keep
every
Keep
need.
building, keep building, gotta keep building. Keep building, gotta keep building. Keep working, gotta keep working. Keep working, gotta keep working. Keep loving, planting that seed. Keep loving, planting that seed. Keep building, gotta keep building.
Peace and
Keep building, gotta
freedom
keep
is
building.
our cry.
Keep building, gotta keep
Peace
building.
and
Keep building, gotta
freedom
keep
is
building.
our cry.
Keep building, gotta keep
Peace
building.
and freedom
Keep
is our
building,
cry.
gotta keep
Without these, the
Keep
world
building,
will
gotta
die.
keep
Peace
building.
and
Keep building, gotta
freedom
keep
is our cry.
Keep building.
We are
building, gotta
building a new